And what's up, everybody? I'm back with another video game review, and today we are reviewing Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, released on multiple platforms back in 2017. And it's not actually the second game in the Wolfenstein franchise, it's actually the third from what I can tell. I haven't played any of the other ones. There's also been another one made since that I have not played. But I did play 2, and the only reason I did get 2 is because of the reason that it's most famous for, probably, is it's funny, the iconic, really, meme that it spawned. I'm from Arizona, and then that kind of thing. So yeah, that's why I bought the game. It was also only $6. I got it in my local game store for the PS4 version that I got. So good deal for the game that it is. I was surprised that it was only that much, but I won't pass up a good deal on a game. So there you go. But I have a lot of thoughts. I streamed most of my gameplay, not all of my gameplay on this game, quite a while ago now. Most likely at the time of this coming out. I had to private all of the streams though, because yeah, we'll talk about why a little bit later on in the review, but I've got a lot of thoughts, so let's jump right into it, shall we? Yeah, so going into this game, you know the premise of this game. Basically, it takes place in an alternative timeline, where the Nazis, yes, and that they won the war, and you're in a resistance to start a revolution. The games have like a kind of a linear timeline with each other, so I didn't play the first game, but you know, I don't think I really, it wasn't super hard to grasp the storyline. It was a little difficult to get a grasp on some of the characters that were established in the first game, but that wasn't super difficult, so it's not a big deal overall. But so I was expecting a lot of the Nazi stuff in the game. I was. But what I did not expect in the game, and this is mostly why I decided to private all of my streams of the game, was I did not expect the level of goriness that there would be in the game, though. I thought that would be fine. That wasn't actually the reason why I streamed it, but it was very gory stuff. Especially the very ending of the game. Like, what the fuck? That is just gruesome. She deserved it for sure, but it was gruesome as hell. And just a lot of other stuff too. And just a lot of other really dark stuff with and along those lines, like having to shoot a dog, and like I didn't actually do it at the beginning of the game. There's other times where you have to shoot like some ravenous mechanical dogs and whatnot, but you know, that's just nuts. But then there's also a lot of nudity in the game, which you got to know about going in. And then also just a lot of racist language. There's a lot of KKK stuff in the game, because it is the 60s, and there's a lot of racist language in the game to help portray the image of the 1960s, 1950s America. And yeah, so you have to know that going in. There's a lot of those language and a lot of sexism as well. A lot of anti-Semitism as well. I mean, it is, you know, that timeline, so you have to expect that going in. But it is very strong, especially at some very strong points in the game. The beginning of the game is very strong with that. And a lot of midpoints in the game. A lot of times when you meet new people, you're recruiting, or like he meets up with his dad again after many years. That part's pretty hard to watch. And then of course when you actually meets, you know who, I'm not going to say his name here, but you know, there's a lot of stuff with that there too, so you just got to know that going in. But it is got a bit of a hook to it too. I was only planning on streaming and playing this game. I wasn't originally going to finish the game. I did finish it, but I wasn't going to originally. I guess I wasn't planning on it. I wasn't expecting myself to finish it, just because of the experience I had with Far Cry 6 and everything with that. But What I didn't know really about going into the game is it's not a very long game. It took me about 7.5, maybe 8.5 hours of gameplay to finish it. And you can whittle that down if you're a little bit better of a game player than I am to about 7.5 to 6.5 hours of gameplay, which I thought was pretty short for a game like this. I was expecting around the 15, 16 hour range at the low end. So that was quite crazy. See, there is some like extra stuff to do after to help enhance the gameplay a little bit, but I didn't do really much of that at all, just because I was kind of done with the game, to be honest. But yeah, so you just have to know that going in. And then another big piece of this game, other than like the cutscenes with a lot of the strong languages and visuals that you get in the game, is the combat. And I thought the combat wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. It was very, very difficult combat. There's just a lot of stuff with the combat. There's just a lot of stuff with the combat. It makes it very overwhelming at times and very, very difficult at times. You're going to get a lot of times where you're just going to be engulfed in people. So you got to really use your resources, use the environment around you to be better at it, and you definitely do get better as you go on in the game, and you get a lot of help with lots of plentiful ammunition and like shield supplies and whatnot too. But it's still extremely difficult. There's a lot of scenes in the game that are really, really hard to fight with. There's one near the end when you're in LA that you're sneaking into the studio and the lady's doing the interview that you eventually kill on TV. That's a very, very difficult level because they introduce 2 super robots that are not in the game before that and are only in that scene. So it catches you kind of off guard and you don't know really how to approach them, which is kind of crazy. And then just like the courthouse scene, which is a huge slap in the face because that's a really, really hard combat area. And then you just realize that it was for nothing. And that's just a big slap in the face to me, like I said. But a lot of other things, there's a lot of times they encourage stealth, or there's a lot of opportunities to go for stealth, but it's not really stealth doesn't really work that well in the game. I tried it a lot. It just doesn't work very well because there's just not a lot of points to hide, and they have very good sense of sight, and there's just really large maps, and it's really hard to find the people that can sound the alarms. So at that point, you're just going in, basically, you're better off just bullshitting your way in and hoping for the best. And that's kind of what the game encourages you to do, because of like what happens to you if you do the stealth. And I don't know, just don't have stealth, or make better stealth if you want stealth, or just don't have it. That's kind of what I'm with. Another thing that I really did not like about the game is that just it's really hard. The map is not very helpful in this game. It's really hard to find out where you want to go because a lot of the areas you go in are very complex and also not in great shape, like when you go to New York City, which is not in great shape at the time of this. But you also sometimes go to like Texas or New Mexico, and they're in fine shape, and you can navigate those pretty easily. Or, New York is not, or like some other rundown areas that are just not, that are really hard to find, and you think the map's going to help you, but it's not really. It's not very detailed. There's just not a lot of, it's not very helpful, and mix that with the very frequent and shitty at points combat, it can get a little overwhelming and very hard to find out where you want to go. So that definitely plays a role in it too. So, and I just want to point out as well how wild this game is. It is really surprising to me that this game got approved and got made. Not necessarily just because of the plot, yes, and everything about that I've already talked about. Definitely pushes the edge to it, but just a lot of the wild concepts that they came up with in this game for how they thought the 1960s would look if it was an alternative timeline that I've already touched on. just the one sequence that I do want to point out in particular, to help just give a justifiable thing over all of this. So you get you're the guy, you're the main guy, and he gets captured, by the and is like put in jail, and there's an attempt to break you out of jail, but that gets sabotaged, and then so you end up going to court, and that's where the courtroom thing happens, which again, just big slap in the face for that. And then, after that, you're sentenced to execution on live television. And so you're in Washington, D.C. when this happens, and then you get executed. At first I was like, okay, there's a way we're going to break out of this courtroom thing. And then it turned out it's all a dream. And they're like, okay, there's probably a way we're going to break out of this execution thing right now, right? Nope. You get executed, and you get your head chopped off. And then she drops the head into a fire pit below. But as your head falls down to the fire pit, here comes a robotic flying thing that just has been hijacked by your allies. And so that grabs your head before it hits the fire. And then they drop something else into the fire as a distraction, like an Indiana Jones level type thing here. They fly your head back to the headquarters, and then are somehow able to hook it up to oxygen and revive you. If that wasn't crazy enough, you are then talked to for a little bit, sedated, and then put the head on a new body. Basically, you cheat death and are just revived. I have never heard of that happening in 2023. 52 years ago, you thought that was going to happen? Or 62 years ago, you thought people were going to do that? I don't think that is a very, very, very out there thing. And I feel like it would have just made more sense for a sabotage of the actual execution to make that connect better. Like, it just... And then there's just a lot of other technologies that just don't make sense in the game. I already talked a little bit about, like, the robots and just how massive they are and how abundant they are. You've got motorcycles that you drive on, but the motorcycles, like, you sit inside a big-ass wheel and just drive the wheel around. And then the headquarters, like, the Nazi headquarters are on Venus. When has Venus ever been seen as inhabitable, especially in 1961? When would they ever see that? And it takes place all up there, and it's just... I'd go into more, but I don't want to. But that's just a little bit of the higher up points that I want to talk about. Just how far out this game really went, because it went out far. And it's definitely one of the wildest games that I've played. One of the harder ones, not like extremely hard. It will probably get an honorable mentions on my hardest video game levels list, but it's not the hardest one that I have played. But so there you go. But for my final score of Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, I will have to give this one I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's not bad. Just not, like, superb, but, I mean, the fact that I played through it all and didn't hate it all the way is something to say there, so. But anyways, if you played this game, I'd love to know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below, and that's going to do it for this video as well, so stay tuned for much more amazing content, including more game reviews and other awesome stuff. Till next time, see you guys later. Goodbye.